Assalamu alaykum, dear brothers and sisters. In today's video, we will be discussing why Allah wants you to be good to women. Allah's commandment to be good to women stems from the foundational principles of justice, compassion, and respect in Islam. There are several ways how Allah emphasizes the importance of treating women with kindness and fairness. Let's begin. Number 1. Understanding the Islamic perspective on the equality of women. The Islamic perspective on the creation of Eve and the status of women is rooted deeply in the Quran and Hadith, where both men and women are depicted as equal in the eyes of Allah. This foundational concept is critical in understanding why Islam places immense importance on the good treatment of women. The Quranic account of the creation of the first woman, Eve, from Adam, is not merely a story of human origins, but a profound lesson in equality and mutual respect. Unlike some interpretations in other religious traditions where Eve is often portrayed as being created from a rib and thus seen as subordinate, the Quran emphasizes that both men and women are created from a single soul. This is clearly stated in Surah An-Nisa 4:1, where Allah says, "O mankind, fear your Lord, who created you from one soul, and created from it its mate, and dispersed from both of them many men and women." This verse highlights the shared origin of both genders, indicating their inherent equality and interdependence. It underscores the notion that no gender precedes the other in terms of creation or worthiness. This mutual origin serves as the cornerstone for Islamic teachings regarding gender relations, stressing respect and justice over discrimination or inequality. From a theological standpoint, the equality of creation between Adam and Eve has profound implications for how Muslims are instructed to view and treat women. In Islamic thought, the fact that both genders are derived from the same soul means that they share equal potential for spirituality, intellectual ability, and moral capacity. It is not the gender, but the piety and righteousness of an individual that determine their value in the eyes of Allah, as stated in Surah Al-Hujurat 49:13. O mankind, indeed we have created you from male and female, and made you peoples and tribes that you may know one another. Indeed, the most noble of you in the sight of Allah is the most righteous of you. Indeed, Allah is knowing and acquainted. This verse not only emphasizes diversity and mutual respect among different peoples and genders, but also sets the criterion for nobility based on righteousness, not gender. The Quranic perspective on the creation of women carries significant practical implications for the treatment of women in daily life. By establishing that men and women are of the same essence, Islam mandates fair and just treatment of women in all aspects of life, including familial, social, and legal dealings. Women are entitled to education, the right to own and manage property, the right to work, and the right to participate in civic and religious life. All rights affirmed by the teachings of Islam from its earliest days. Despite the clear Quranic affirmations of gender equality, cultural practices in some Muslim communities have at times reflected less progressive attitudes towards women. It is important to differentiate between cultural practices and the true teachings of Islam that advocate for the fair, just, and kind treatment of women. Educating Muslim societies about the genuine Islamic principles regarding women's status is crucial in ensuring that cultural deviations do not overshadow religious truths. The story of the creation of Eve in Islam is not just an origin story, but a declaration of equality and mutual respect. It sets a divine precedent for the treatment of women, underscoring that in the eyes of Allah, men and women are equals, deserving of equal respect, rights, and opportunities. This understanding is essential for fostering a just society where all individuals are valued equally, and where men are particularly enjoined to be good to women, not out of benevolence, but as a fulfillment of divine command. Number 2. Rights granted by Islam to women. The discussion about the rights granted to women in Islam is not only crucial for understanding Islamic jurisprudence, but also for correcting common misconceptions about the role and status of women in Muslim societies. Islam, from its inception in the 7th century, introduced revolutionary rights for women in the context of marriage, family life, legal affairs, and societal participation. Before the advent of Islam, many societies, including pre-Islamic Arabia, practiced various forms of discrimination against women. This included denial of basic rights such as inheritance, education, and a dignified status. The revelation of the Quran in the 7th century brought significant changes to these practices, granting women rights that were revolutionary for the time. One of the most significant verses in this regard is from Surah An-Nisa 4:32, which asserts, "And do not wish for that by which Allah has made some of you exceed others. For men is a share of what they have earned, and for women is a share of what they have earned. And ask Allah of His bounty. Surely Allah is ever of all things knowing." This verse and others like it lay the foundation for economic independence and the right to own property, debunking the then common notion that women should be financially dependent on their male relatives. In legal terms, Islam acknowledges women's right to own property, conduct business, and receive equal pay for equal work. The Prophet Muhammad himself frequently consulted women and valued their opinions in both domestic and community matters. Women, including his wives Khadija and Aisha, were notable for their roles in commerce and education, respectively. The Islamic legal principle that women are entitled to manage their own wealth independently of their husbands or male relatives was unprecedented at the time. This autonomy ensures that women can be economically active and contribute to their families and the broader economy without losing control over their earnings and assets. Education holds a special place in Islamic teachings, emphasized equally for both genders. The Prophet Muhammad stated, "Seeking knowledge is a duty upon every Muslim." This directive explicitly includes women, and throughout Islamic history, there have been notable female scholars, educators, and intellectuals who have contributed significantly to the development of Islamic thought and society. Islamic history is replete with examples like Fatima al-Fihri, who founded the University of Al-Qarawiyyin in Fez, Morocco in 859 CE, recognized as one of the oldest operating universities in the world, primarily established by a Muslim woman. Islam significantly reformed the rights of women regarding marriage and family life. Women gained the right to consent to their marriages, which was not a universal norm at the time. The dowry, a marital gift given by the groom directly to the bride, is to be her personal property and remains with her even in the case of divorce. Additionally, women have the right to seek divorce if their marital rights are not being upheld. In terms of motherhood, Islam elevates the status of mothers, with the Prophet Muhammad stating that paradise lies under the feet of mothers, emphasizing the respect and care that should be accorded to them. While Islamic texts advocate for the rights and respect of women, cultural practices in some Muslim-majority countries have at times deviated from these principles. It is crucial to differentiate between cultural practices and the actual teachings of Islam. The reduction of these discrepancies requires continual education and the re-emphasis on the original teachings of Islam regarding women. The rights granted to women by Islam were transformative at the time of their revelation and remain relevant today. They encompass a wide array of areas including legal, economic, educational, and familial rights. Understanding and implementing these rights is crucial for ensuring that Muslim women can fully participate in and contribute to their societies while living dignified lives that are true to their faith. Number 3. The role of women in the family. The role of women within the family is of immense importance in Islamic teachings, which emphasize respect, care, and love for women in their capacities as mothers, wives, and daughters. The Quran and Hadith provide substantial guidance on how these roles are to be understood and appreciated within the Muslim community. The status of mothers in Islam is exceptionally high, highlighted repeatedly in the Quran and Hadith. One of the most famous sayings of the Prophet Muhammad emphasizes the importance of mothers. Paradise lies under the feet of mothers. This metaphorical phrase profoundly underscores the respect and honor children are expected to show their mothers. It indicates that the well-being and happiness of a mother are pathways to achieving one's own spiritual and moral excellence. Islamic teachings elevate the mother's role as not just a caregiver but a central figure in nurturing ethical and spiritual values. The influence of a mother in shaping society by raising informed and ethical children is recognized as one of the most valuable contributions to a community. In Islam, the relationship between husband and wife is described as one of mutual love, mercy, and tranquility. The Quran elaborates on this partnership in Surah Ar-Rum 30:21. And among his signs is this, that he created for you mates from among yourselves, that you may dwell in tranquility with them, and he has put love and mercy between your hearts. Verily in that are signs for those who reflect. This verse highlights the companionship, love, and mutual respect that should define a marital relationship. Women are granted significant rights within marriage, including the right to choose their partner, to retain their own identity and assets, and to be supported and cherished by their husbands. The rights and responsibilities of both spouses are balanced in such a way that neither is burdened unfairly. A husband's role as a provider does not diminish the role of the wife in the household. Rather, it reinforces the partnership and mutual support that should characterize a marriage. Islam also strongly advocates for the kind and just treatment of daughters. Pre-Islamic Arabia often viewed daughters as less desirable than sons, but Islam abolished these unjust practices by ensuring daughters' rights to inheritance, education, and independent identity. The Prophet Muhammad himself highlighted the importance of caring for daughters, stating that those who raise daughters and treat them well will be very close to him in paradise. This teaching not only improved the status of daughters in society, but also encouraged families to view and treat their daughters as blessings rather than burdens. In modern contexts, the traditional roles of women as mothers, wives, and daughters continue to evolve. While these roles remain foundational, women increasingly participate in education, employment, and public life more broadly. The challenge for contemporary Muslim societies is to balance these traditional roles with modern realities, ensuring that the fundamental rights and dignities of women are upheld. Islamic teachings provide a flexible yet robust framework that supports the evolving roles of women while maintaining the core principles of respect, dignity, and equity. For example, the increasing involvement of women in professional fields is viewed as an extension of their roles within the family and society, contributing not just to the household, but to the broader socio-economic development. The roles of women in the family as delineated by Islamic teachings are not just social functions, but are deeply spiritual and moral endeavors that contribute to the fabric of a balanced and compassionate society. By understanding and implementing these roles, Muslim communities can ensure that they honor the rights and respect due to women, as commanded by their faith. This ensures that the strength and harmony of the family unit are maintained, serving as the cornerstone of a healthy society. Number 4. The treatment of women by Prophet Muhammad. The life of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, serves as a beacon of guidance for Muslims. His actions and sayings regarding the treatment of women highlight a foundational respect and honor that Islam holds for the female gender. Exploring these examples provides invaluable insights into how Muslims are expected to treat women in accordance with Islamic principles. One of the most significant aspects of the Prophet Muhammad's life is his relationship with his wives. He was known for his kindness and compassion. Aisha, one of his wives, narrated numerous instances demonstrating the Prophet's loving behavior. He would often help with household chores, mend his clothes, and engage in friendly races with her. These anecdotes illustrate a partnership that was based on mutual respect and affection, challenging the norms of his time, which often viewed women merely as property. The Prophet's treatment of his first wife, Khadijah, is also profoundly telling. Khadijah was 15 years older than him and a widow, yet the Prophet's loyalty and love for her never waned, even after her death. He frequently praised her and remembered her kindness long after she had passed away. This relationship exemplifies the deep respect and honor the Prophet held for women, regardless of their age or societal status. Prophet Muhammad was revolutionary in advocating for the rights and dignity of women in Arabian society. At a time when female infanticide was rampant, he declared such practices abhorrent and sinful. He improved women's rights in marriage, including the right to consent and the right to initiation of divorce under specific circumstances. These reforms provided women with autonomy and dignity that were radical for that era. In legal matters, he consulted women and valued their opinions, often using their insights to make decisions or pass judgments. For instance, when women approached him feeling left out from daily spiritual gatherings, he set a day aside exclusively for their religious instruction and empowerment. The Prophet also acknowledged and valued the contributions of women in various fields. Women were active participants in the significant events of Muslim community life, including battles where they served as nurses, water carriers, and even warriors when needed. Their involvement was not only tolerated but encouraged, with the Prophet publicly acknowledging their contributions and ensuring they were rewarded for their efforts. An example is Amara, who defended the Prophet during the Battle of Uhud. Her bravery was personally commended by the Prophet, highlighting the respect given to women's valor and commitment. The Prophet Muhammad explicitly taught his followers to treat women with respect and kindness. He stated, "The best among you are those who are best to their wives." This statement is a clear directive from the Prophet, stressing the importance of good treatment towards women and serves as a criterion for judging the character of Muslim men. He also abolished the pre-Islamic practice of inheriting women against their will and established protocols that required the explicit consent of women in all contracts and marriages, further underlining the importance of respecting women's autonomy and decisions. The examples set by Prophet Muhammad in his treatment of women are timeless, serving as guiding principles for Muslims. His life and teachings underscore a fundamental Islamic view that women are to be treated with the utmost respect and dignity. This respect is not merely suggested but mandated through his example, emphasizing equality, partnership, and mutual respect between genders. By revisiting these prophetic traditions, Muslims are reminded of the high regard in which women should be held, both within the family and the wider community. This serves as a continuous reminder to uphold the principles of respect, fairness, and kindness towards women in all aspects of life. Number 5. The spiritual and social impact of women in Islamic history. Women in Islamic history have not only fulfilled roles within their families, but have also made significant contributions to the spiritual and social landscapes of their communities. From the time of Prophet Muhammad to the golden ages of Islamic civilization, women have been influential scholars, mystics, rulers, and reformers. Understanding these roles sheds light on the dynamic ways in which women have shaped and been shaped by Islamic history. The influence of women in the early days of Islam is profound, beginning with figures such as Khadija, the first wife of Prophet Muhammad. As a successful businesswoman, Khadija's support was crucial in the early spread of Islam. Her belief in Muhammad's mission at a time when he was largely unsupported gave him the strength and security needed to preach openly. Khadija's role as a confidant and supporter highlights the spiritual and emotional strength women contributed right from the inception of Islam. Aisha, another of Muhammad's wives, is renowned for her contributions to the Hadith and Islamic jurisprudence. Her narrations of the Prophet's sayings and practices form a substantial part of the Islamic tradition, providing crucial insights into the Prophet's life and teachings. Aisha's role as a teacher and a leader in her own right, especially after the Prophet's death, exemplifies the significant roles women played in the religious and educational spheres of Muslim society. In the realm of Sufism, women like Rabia al-Adawiyya, a famous mystic from Basra, played a pivotal role in shaping Islamic spirituality. Her emphasis on love and devotion to God as opposed to fear of hell was revolutionary and influenced subsequent generations of Sufi thinkers and poets. Rabia introduced the concept of divine love that became a cornerstone in the development of Sufi philosophy. Throughout the medieval period, Islamic civilization saw numerous women scholars who were authorities in fields like hadith, jurisprudence, and Islamic theology. The history books record over 8,000 female scholars who taught judges and imams, indicating the respect and authority women held in the Islamic academic sphere. Women in Islamic history have also been significant patrons of the arts and education. The establishment of libraries, schools, and universities by women demonstrates their involvement in promoting education and culture. For instance, Fatima al-Fihri founded the University of Al-Qarawiyyin in Fez, Morocco in 859 CE, which is recognized as one of the oldest continuously operating universities in the world. Women rulers like Shajarat al-Dur in Egypt and Razia Sultana in Delhi showed political acumen and leadership. Their reigns are marked by significant architectural contributions and the promotion of public works. These women not only ruled effectively in traditionally male-dominated societies, but also patronized sciences and arts, fostering periods of cultural flourish. In modern times, the legacy of these influential women continues to inspire. Their stories and achievements are being revisited as part of a broader re-evaluation of women's roles in the history of Islam. This re-engagement helps address contemporary issues by providing historical precedents of empowered women, highlighting the discrepancy sometimes found between religious teachings and cultural practices regarding women's rights. The roles of women in Islamic history are rich and varied, spanning the spectrum from religious scholars to rulers and patrons of the arts. Their contributions have not only enriched Islamic civilization, but have also set precedents for the rights and roles of women in modern Muslim societies. Recognizing and celebrating these contributions is crucial in understanding the full scope of Islamic history and in continuing to advocate for comprehensive, inclusive interpretations of Islam that honor the profound impact of women. Number 6. the ethical foundations of gender equality in Islam. In Islam, the concept of gender equality is rooted deeply in its ethical teachings, which emphasize justice, fairness, and equity. The Quran and the sayings of Prophet Muhammad provide numerous references that advocate for the balanced treatment of all individuals, regardless of gender. This principle of equality is not only a moral imperative, but also a fundamental aspect of Islamic law and life. The Quran explicitly states that men and women are equal in the eyes of God. One of the key verses in the Quran that addresses this issue is Surah Al-Hujurat 49:13. O mankind, indeed we have created you from male and female and made you peoples and tribes that you may know one another. Indeed, the most noble of you in the sight of Allah is the most righteous of you. Indeed, Allah is knowing and acquainted. This verse underscores the idea that the only thing that distinguishes people in the sight of God is their piety and righteousness, not their gender, race, or nationality. This establishes a clear benchmark for equality and sets the tone for how interactions should occur within the Muslim community. Prophet Muhammad's sayings and practices, Sunnah, further reinforce the Quranic message of gender equality. He advocated for the education and empowerment of women and emphasized the importance of respecting women's rights in various hadiths. For example, he said, "Whoever has daughters and treats them kindly, they will be protection for him against hellfire." This hadith highlights the value of daughters, directly countering pre-Islamic practices where female infanticide was rampant. The Prophet's teachings actively promoted the nurturing and respectful treatment of women, thus setting a high standard for his followers. Islam was revolutionary in that it granted women legal rights centuries before these were considered in other parts of the world. Women are given rights to own property, earn money, receive an education, and participate in legal and civic duties. In marital relationships, women are entitled to receive a dowry from their husbands, which remains their personal property. Women also have the right to seek divorce under conditions of harm or neglect, showing that Islam considers the welfare and autonomy of women seriously. These rights reflect a broader ethical commitment to justice and equity in Islamic law, which seeks to protect the vulnerable and ensure that everyone, regardless of gender, is treated fairly. The principle of gender equality in Islam extends beyond individual rights to encompass broader social responsibilities. Muslims are urged to act justly not only within their families, but also within their communities. This includes advocating for the rights of all members, providing for the needy, and ensuring that women participate fully in the religious, social, and public spheres. For instance, during the Prophet's life, women were active participants in community meetings and were consulted in major decisions. This practice not only honored the contributions of women, but also ensured that the community benefited from all perspectives, enhancing the collective decision-making process. Despite these strong foundations, cultural practices and traditional norms in some Muslim societies have at times hindered the realization of gender equality. Contemporary Muslim scholars and activists refer back to the Quran and Sunnah to challenge unjust practices and advocate for reforms that are in line with Islamic principles. The ongoing dialogue within Muslim communities about the application of these teachings is vital for addressing current gender disparities and fulfilling the Islamic commitment to justice. The ethical foundation for gender equality in Islam is robust, grounded in both the Quranic text and the Prophet Muhammad's teachings. These sources advocate for a society where men and women are judged by the same standards of piety and righteousness, and where both genders are equally valued for their contributions. As Muslim communities continue to evolve, the foundational ethical teachings of Islam provide both a mandate and a method for promoting and achieving greater gender equality. Number 7. Women's rights as human rights. In Islam, the emphasis on justice, fairness, and the intrinsic dignity of every individual is deeply rooted in its teachings. These principles are not only pivotal to understanding the relationship between men and women, but are also essential in recognizing the broader framework of human rights within the Islamic tradition. This understanding underscores the rights of women as integral components of human rights, advocating for equitable treatment and access to opportunities across all spheres of life. The Quran, Islam's holy book, repeatedly emphasizes the importance of justice. It states that God has sent prophets and revealed scriptures to ensure that people maintain justice. Surah Hadid 57:25. The prominence of justice in the Quran highlights its role as a fundamental divine mandate, one that encompasses all aspects of human interaction, including gender relations. Prophet Muhammad, in his final sermon, unequivocally declared the necessity of treating women kindly and justly. He reminded his followers of women's rights over men, just as men have rights over women, except in what pertains to obligations under God. This balance of rights and responsibilities is a cornerstone in the Islamic perspective on gender relations, aiming to prevent the oppression or mistreatment of women. From its outset, Islam introduced several reforms that significantly enhanced the status and rights of women in society. Women were granted the right to inherit property, a revolutionary concept at a time when women themselves were often considered property. They were also given the right to an education, to work and earn money, and to participate in the governance of their community. The Quran explicitly details the inheritance rights of women, ensuring that they receive their fair share, which, although typically half that of men's share, was a progressive step forward from previous norms where women received nothing. This provision was intended to integrate women more fully into the economic sphere and provide them with financial independence, which was virtually unheard of in 7th century Arabia. Education is highly valued in Islam, with the Prophet Muhammad asserting that seeking knowledge is a mandatory duty for every Muslim man and woman. This directive was not merely theoretical. Many women from the early Islamic period were well known for their scholarship, particularly in hadith and jurisprudence. The participation of women in these fields not only enhanced their own lives, but also enriched their communities. Economic independence is equally supported. Women in early Islam were engaged in various professions, from business owners to skilled laborers. The wife of the Prophet, Khadijah, was a successful merchant, and her business acumen and wealth were critical in the early support of the Islamic mission. This model provides a powerful precedent for the economic empowerment of women. Despite these strong foundations, cultural practices have at times overshadowed Islamic teachings, resulting in disparities between the rights granted to women by Islam and their application in society. In many Muslim-majority countries, the struggle for women's rights continues to be significant. Activists and reformers often return to the Quran and Hadith to argue against cultural practices that deny women their full rights and to promote a more authentic implementation of Islamic principles. Reform movements within Islam frequently emphasize education, both religious and secular, as a means to empower women and expand their opportunities. They argue that a more profound understanding of Islamic teachings is necessary to challenge and correct misinterpretations and misapplications of the texts that have historically disadvantaged women. In Islam, women's rights are not ancillary, but are integral to the broader framework of human rights. Justice, as a divine commandment, demands the equitable treatment of all individuals, and this extends unequivocally to women. The Islamic tradition, through its scriptures and through the example of the Prophet Muhammad, provides a powerful advocacy for gender equality. Understanding and implementing these rights within the context of modern challenges remains a dynamic and essential pursuit for Muslims worldwide, aiming to bridge the gap between divine justice and human practice. Number 8. Ensuring justice and equality. The principles of justice and equality lie at the heart of Islamic teachings, forming the cornerstone of ethical conduct within Muslim communities. In Islam, justice is not merely a moral ideal but a divine commandment, mandated by the Quran and exemplified in the life of Prophet Muhammad. Understanding how these principles are applied in various spheres of life is crucial for ensuring the fair and equitable treatment of all individuals regardless of gender. The Quran repeatedly emphasizes the importance of justice as a fundamental value in Islam. In Surah An-Nisa 4:1-135, believers are instructed, "O you who have believed, be persistently standing firm for Allah, witnesses in justice, and do not let the hatred of a people prevent you from being just. Be just, that is nearer to righteousness." This verse underscores the imperative for Muslims to uphold justice, even in the face of adversity or personal biases. It serves as a reminder that justice must prevail, regardless of circumstances, and that it is integral to righteousness in the sight of God. The life of Prophet Muhammad provides numerous examples of justice and equity in action. He was known for his impartiality and fairness in resolving disputes, regardless of the party's social status or gender. The famous incident of the Jewish woman who sought his judgment in a legal matter illustrates his commitment to justice. Despite her being from a different faith community, the Prophet ruled in her favor, demonstrating that justice transcends religious boundaries. Moreover, the Prophet's interactions with women exemplified respect, dignity, and fairness. He actively listened to their concerns, valued their opinions, and ensured their rights were protected. His marriage to Khadijah, a successful businesswoman who was older than him, challenges traditional gender norms and underscores the importance of mutual respect and partnership in marriage. Islamic law, Sharia, contains numerous provisions that uphold gender equality and ensure justice for women. For example, in matters of testimony, the Quran stipulates that 2 women should be called upon in place of 1 man if 1 woman's memory lapses. Surah Al-Baqarah 2:282. While some have interpreted this as implying women are inferior in their testimonial capacity, others argue that it was a practical measure considering the societal context of the time, where women were less likely to be involved in financial transactions and thus may have had less experience with record keeping. Similarly, in matters of inheritance, the Quran specifies fixed shares for female relatives, ensuring they receive their fair portion of inheritance alongside male relatives. This provision challenges traditional practices where women were often denied inheritance altogether or received significantly smaller shares than men. Contemporary Muslim scholars and activists continue to advocate for gender equality within Muslim societies, drawing inspiration from Islamic teachings on justice and fairness. Initiatives aimed at promoting women's education, economic empowerment, and political participation are gaining traction, with many citing Islamic principles as their motivation. Efforts to challenge harmful cultural practices such as forced marriage and honor-based violence, are also rooted in Islamic ethics of compassion, dignity, and respect for human life. By highlighting the inherent worth and rights of all individuals, regardless of gender, these initiatives seek to create more just and equitable societies in accordance with Islamic principles. Despite the ethical foundations of gender equality in Islam, challenges persist in translating these principles into practice. Cultural norms, patriarchal interpretations of religious texts, and political factors often obstruct efforts to achieve full gender equality within Muslim communities. However, there is also considerable progress being made, with increasing awareness and advocacy leading to tangible changes in attitudes and practices. The ongoing dialogue within Muslim communities about the interpretation and application of Islamic teachings on gender equality is essential for addressing these challenges and fostering greater justice and inclusivity. By reaffirming the ethical imperatives of justice and equality in Islam and actively working to uphold them, Muslims can contribute to the creation of more just and equitable societies for all. Number 9. Islam's ethical imperative. In the contemporary context, the promotion of gender equality within Islamic societies is not just a matter of legal reform, but also an ethical imperative deeply rooted in Islamic teachings. The Quranic principles of justice, fairness, and dignity for all individuals, regardless of gender, provide a robust framework for addressing gender disparities and advocating for women's rights. Understanding how these principles can be applied in modern society is essential for fostering inclusive and equitable communities. One of the primary challenges in advancing gender equality within Islamic societies lies in the interpretation of religious texts. While the Quran and Hadith provide foundational principles of justice and equality, interpretations can vary widely, often influenced by cultural norms and patriarchal biases. Reinterpreting religious texts through a gender-sensitive lens is crucial for uncovering the inherent egalitarian principles within Islam and challenging interpretations that perpetuate gender discrimination. For example, revisiting verses that have historically been used to justify male superiority or female subservience can reveal alternative interpretations that prioritize equality and mutual respect. By contextualizing these verses within the socio-historical context of revelation and considering the broader ethical principles of Islam, it becomes possible to reinterpret them in ways that affirm the dignity and agency of all individuals, regardless of gender. Education plays a pivotal role in empowering women and advancing gender equality within Islamic societies. Access to quality education not only enhances women's intellectual and economic capabilities, but also fosters critical thinking and awareness of their rights. Islamic teachings emphasize the importance of seeking knowledge, with the Prophet Muhammad stating that the acquisition of knowledge is a duty incumbent on every Muslim, male and female. Efforts to promote women's education, particularly in fields traditionally dominated by men, can help dismantle gender stereotypes and expand opportunities for women in leadership and decision-making roles. By nurturing a generation of educated and empowered women, Islamic societies can benefit from their diverse perspectives and contributions to social, economic, and political development. Gender-based violence and discrimination remain pervasive challenges in many Islamic societies, undermining the principles of justice and equality espoused by Islam. Cultural practices, patriarchal attitudes, and inadequate legal frameworks often perpetuate these injustices, leaving women vulnerable to abuse and marginalization. Efforts to address gender-based violence and discrimination require comprehensive strategies that involve legal reforms, awareness-raising campaigns, and community-based interventions. Islamic teachings condemn all forms of violence and oppression, emphasizing the importance of compassion, mercy, and respect for human dignity. By promoting a culture of nonviolence and mutual respect, Islamic societies can create safer and more supportive environments for women and girls. Religious leaders and scholars have a crucial role to play in challenging harmful interpretations of religious texts. that justify or condone violence against women, and promoting alternative narratives that uphold the principles of justice and equality. Achieving gender equality within Islamic societies requires the active involvement and support of men as allies and advocates. Patriarchal attitudes and social norms often reinforce gender inequalities, making it essential for men to challenge these norms and actively work towards promoting gender justice. Islamic teachings emphasize the importance of partnership and cooperation between men and women, with both genders sharing equal responsibility for upholding ethical values and promoting social justice. Engaging men in discussions about gender equality and encouraging them to reflect on their roles and privileges can help foster greater awareness and empathy towards women's experiences. By promoting positive masculinity that values compassion, empathy, and respect for women's rights, Islamic societies can create more inclusive and equitable communities where men and women can thrive together. The pursuit of gender equality within Islamic societies is not just a matter of legal reform or social change, but a deeply ethical endeavor rooted in the principles of justice, fairness, and dignity enshrined in Islamic teachings. By reinterpreting religious texts, empowering women through education and leadership, addressing gender-based violence and discrimination, and fostering male allyship and advocacy, Islamic societies can move closer to realizing the egalitarian vision of Islam. By embracing these ethical imperatives, Muslims can contribute to building more just, inclusive, and compassionate societies where the rights and dignity of all individuals are respected and upheld. Number 10. Islam's role in global gender equality. Gender equality is not only a local or regional concern but a global imperative, and Islam, as one of the world's major religions, has a significant role to play in advancing this cause. While Islamic teachings emphasize justice, fairness, and the inherent dignity of all individuals, including women, achieving gender equality within Muslim-majority countries and Muslim communities worldwide presents both challenges and opportunities. Understanding Islam's role in promoting global gender equality requires examining these complexities and exploring strategies for progress. One of the primary challenges in advancing gender equality within Islamic societies lies in navigating the intersection of religious teachings with cultural norms and practices. While Islam espouses principles of justice and equity, interpretations of religious texts can vary widely, often influenced by patriarchal traditions and societal norms. Reconciling these interpretations with contemporary understandings of gender equality requires critical engagement with religious texts and traditions, as well as a willingness to challenge entrenched attitudes and practices. Islamic scholars and activists are increasingly advocating for a more inclusive and egalitarian interpretation of Islam that upholds the rights and dignity of all individuals, regardless of gender. By promoting alternative narratives that emphasize gender justice and equality, they seek to bridge the gap between religious teachings and contemporary realities, paving the way for meaningful progress towards gender equality. Legal frameworks within many Muslim-majority countries often reflect patriarchal biases and discriminatory practices that perpetuate gender inequalities. From family law to inheritance rights to employment opportunities, women in these contexts may face legal barriers that limit their autonomy and hinder their full participation in society. Addressing these disparities requires comprehensive legal reforms that prioritize gender equality and ensure the protection of women's rights under the law. Islamic principles provide a foundation for advocating for legal reforms that align with the ethical imperatives of justice and fairness. By engaging with Islamic teachings on gender equality and leveraging religious discourse to support legal change, activists and policymakers can mobilize support for legislative initiatives that promote women's rights and enhance their status within society. Education is a powerful tool for empowering women and challenging gender stereotypes within Muslim communities. By providing girls with access to quality education and promoting gender-sensitive curricula that challenge traditional gender roles, Islamic societies can cultivate a new generation of empowered women who are equipped to advocate for their rights and contribute to social change. Islamic teachings emphasize the importance of seeking knowledge and promoting intellectual inquiry, with Prophet Muhammad stating that the ink of the scholar is more sacred than the blood of the martyr. This emphasis on education provides a theological basis for advocating for women's education and empowerment within Islamic societies, highlighting the compatibility between Islamic principles and contemporary efforts to promote gender equality. Grassroots activism and community engagement are essential components of efforts to advance gender equality within Islamic societies. By mobilizing local communities, raising awareness about women's rights, and challenging harmful practices and attitudes, grassroots activists play a vital role in driving social change from the ground up. Islamic organizations and community leaders can also play a crucial role in promoting gender equality within Muslim communities. By integrating gender-sensitive programming into religious and community activities, they can foster a culture of inclusivity and respect for women's rights, while also challenging patriarchal norms and practices that undermine gender equality. Achieving gender equality within Islamic societies requires a coordinated effort that transcends national borders and cultural divides. Global solidarity and collaboration among activists, scholars, policymakers, and religious leaders are essential for sharing best practices, exchanging ideas, and mobilizing resources to support efforts to advance gender equality. International organizations, such as the United Nations, play a critical role in promoting gender equality globally and can provide valuable support to initiatives within Islamic societies. By partnering with local stakeholders and leveraging their expertise and resources, international organizations can amplify the impact of grassroots efforts and contribute to meaningful change at the national and regional levels. Islam has a vital role to play in advancing global gender equality, drawing on its rich ethical tradition and principles of justice and fairness. By challenging patriarchal interpretations of religious texts, advocating for legal reforms that uphold women's rights, promoting education and empowerment, mobilizing grassroots activism, and fostering global solidarity and collaboration, Islamic societies can contribute to the realization of a more just, equitable, and inclusive world for all. Embracing Islam's ethical imperatives and harnessing its transformative potential, Muslims can be at the forefront of efforts to advance gender equality and create a more just and compassionate world for future generations.